Hi, everybody. It's Fonda here for another Queen and Sober. Hi, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Hi. Soph. I love that screen name or whatever you call it these days. Hi, everybody. Oh, you're welcome. Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Queen and Sober. I am your host, Fonda K, also known as Eric, but tonight I am Fonda. Queen and Sober is a monthly Instagram Live with Eating Recovery Center where we talk all things LGBTQ plus mental health, eating disorder recovery, sobriety. No topic is really off topic. This is very much us trying to create a community with each other. Community has been such a huge part of my healing journey from substance use disorder, eating disorders, depression, as well as coming to terms with who I am as a queer person. So it is such an honor to get to bring this to you once a month on Eating Recovery Center's page. Hello, Margaret. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, hello from Puerto Rico. Yo soy Latina también. Yes. Hello. So tonight, okay, for those of you joining in, please let me know where you're tuning in from. We have Puerto Rico. I am in New York. Oh my gosh, Cara, that means the world to me. Thank you. Thank you so much. You all have helped me through so much. Just knowing that I'm not alone and that the ability to give voice to our experiences is literally what makes our life so rich and so meaningful as queer people. So just know that you are never alone, that we are always in this together. Okay, we have Oregon. Ooh, Sacramento. Hello. Hello. So we're getting the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast right now. So we're getting the West Coast. Yes. Okay, Denver. I've lived, okay, so I'm Mexican, born and raised, South Texas. Ooh, we have Austin, Texas. What? Okay, so now I've moved to Chicago to finish school, a gift of recovery. Took me 10 years. So if you are struggling with school as part of your recovery or sobriety, you are not alone. My recovery had to come first. All the way from Australia. Oh my goodness. Wow, I am so honored. Yeah, this is incredible. You all are so amazing. And then I moved to New York, so I'm in New York too. So tonight we are going to talk about spirituality. So many of us, when coming to terms with who we are, experience a crisis of faith. Where do we fit in with the larger social conversations? Where do we fit in with our families? With some of us, a lot of us come from communities of faith that have very harmful and shameful views of sin and sexuality and struggles. And so tonight, my very special guest, who has become a very dear friend of mine, Bonnie Violet, is a queer chaplain based out of San Francisco, California. And tonight we're going to have a conversation about coming to terms with who we are as queer people and spiritual beings on this planet, making peace with our journeys through faith, away from faith, back to faith, as well as connecting with the community that lifts us up, sustains us, and celebrates us. So that is the topic. Now, you are always more than welcome to, in the chat, ask questions about recovery, sobriety, ask questions about anything, because we are also advocates, but we like to come together and just propose topics that I know are very meaningful for a lot of people. So this is still very much your space as it is mine. So please throw out topics. I'd love to address whatever it is that you want to talk about. Okay, so without further ado, welcome everyone, and hopefully my guest will be coming up. Right? Spirituality has been the forefront of my recovery recently. This is too perfect. I know. Me too. That's why I'm bringing this as a topic. Yes, substance use and eating disorders are very much my recoveries. So, here is our guest. I'm so excited. Hopefully, let's see. Cross your fingers. Let's pray to technology, Jesus. Hi!
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Oh, I love when you wear your star earrings because you are a
Mm.
star. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm just chilling in New York, in front of my ring light as, ring light has become the accessory of 2020 and 2021.
Uh-huh.
Um, can anyone out there relate? Just give some hearts if you're like, okay, I caved in, I got a ring light.
Right. I had to get one for my traveling. It actually folds in half now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't wait to talk about your traveling. It's because of your traveling that we actually got to meet in person. It was super amazing. Um, Before this, I don't know anyone else out there, but I just like would take the lampshade off a lamp and just like put it behind my computer and I was like, I refuse. I refuse to get a ring light. And then I was like, why am I fighting it? Like
I know it makes, just like everything else, it makes it easier. Sometimes we gotta make things a lot more difficult than they need to be, huh?
I know, I know. I am the queen of complicating things. But also, can you show everyone your nails? Because I
Yeah.
wanted green. Okay, so we met up in New York. Oh my God, Alliance, I love you all so much too. Thank you so much for your support. Yes, I wanted your nails. And then I would get ready to go get them this week. Oh, sounds in New York in the background. I apologize. I don't know if you can hear that siren. Okay.
Yeah,
I
no problem.
promise. Wishing them well. So, and then I was like, I would break them. I'm such a klutz. I would break them, and then down goes the drain with $90. So these are just like little press-ons that you can
Take
pop on.
right off.
Right,
Yep.
right. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, this is Queen and Sober. I am your host, Fonda K with Eating Recovery Center. And tonight I am joined by my amazing friend in recovery and spirituality. Without further ado, introduce yourself, Madame.
Right. Hi everyone, I'm Bonnie Violet. I am a transgender queer spiritual drag artist and a digital chaplain. And yeah, a lot of what I focus on is helping folks lace their narrative with a spiritual thread. So a lot, and typically folks like myself, who at one point in time believed they couldn't have access or they weren't allowed access to God or spirituality, and kind of helping folks kind of claim that for themselves.
Right. I think that's so important. I mean, you have helped me even in this pandemic. So I had the honor of being a guest on your series, Dragon Spirituality, and I'd never experienced anything like that. Just a simple conversation of what is the spirit behind your drag? What do you believe? Why do you believe what you believe? And how has that shaped your narrative, who you are? And it was such a powerful and transformative experience because before that experience, I just thought, drag is something that I do and it has a lot of meaning for me.
Mm-hmm.
And after that experience, I walked away being like, wow, this has so much meaning for so many people. And I would be kidding myself if I didn't think like existing in this body and in this space was not some radical form of spirituality.
Mm.
And so to dive right into the deep topic, how do you define spirituality?
Huh. Well, I think at times I've identified spirituality as anything that lifts me, anything that animates and causes my body to move in a way that brings life and life affirming kind of behaviors and actions, which sounds a little woo woo. But I say that because there are a lot of different things in my life that can do that for me at different times. And there was a time when I didn't feel like I could say, "Hey God, like I need some help here," or "Hey God, can you like lift me up?" or you know what I mean? And so I learned other ways of being able to kind of lift myself, and um, a lot of that is kind of where like drugs and alcohol came into play for me because church was such a big part of my life. Like it was. I mean, it was my life. It was my safe place as a kid. I grew up in a church. I wasn't like I didn't. My family wasn't church going folks. The first queer thing I did, I think, was I went to church. It was very odd for for my family, and I loved it. But church was safe for me. It was a safe place for me. At home, I was always getting corrected about my gender, and I couldn't get comfortable in my body or in myself at home. And at school, I had a role to play. I had to get good grades, and I had to, get scholarships or whatever so that I could, you know, go on with my life because I grew up poor in a small town in Idaho. And so church was a safe place for me to land. And I never had to confront my sexuality. I never had to confront my gender because at that time as a young person, it wasn't a part of my life and it wasn't a part of the conversations that I was having.
I really relate to so much of what you're saying, except, okay, I just have to say, I think it's so amazing that you said the first queer thing you did was go to church. Because the first queer thing I did was ask for an Easy Bake Oven and Barbie dolls for Christmas when I was 4. So, but I think the other thing that I really related to in my own way, and it doesn't necessarily have to be church, was this idea of not having to confront who I am, not having to, and there's so many, I think so many people, that's a human thing. And for me, spirituality, you know, I loved your anything that lifts you up. My favorite thing is like, if it doesn't love you, it's not part of your healing.
Yes.
So there's like so many things that are synonymous, like love, healing, faith, grace, spirituality. For me, spirituality, and you've really helped me with this a lot, is understanding what we all have in common. And the idea of not being able to confront certain parts of ourselves is very much a human experience. And it's not a gay thing, it's not a queer thing, it's not just I mean, if I think about recovery, like all of the different recoveries and all of the different healings, because not everybody identifies with being in recovery, which is amazing. It's all about being able to accept where we are first. The ability to accept, okay, this is my beginning. And if I can accept my beginning, then I can take real steps forward.
Yeah.
So for everyone tuning in, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
For everyone just not tuning in, this is Queen and Sober. It's an LGBTQ plus Instagram live with Eating Recovery Center and some amazing guests. Tonight, I'm speaking with the queer chaplain, Bonnie Violet, all about spirituality and healing our narratives, drawing together our narratives. So please know that you are welcome to ask us questions in the chat. We love connecting with you. This is very much your space as it is ours. So please, please, please let us know if you have any questions on anything related to mental health and sexuality and gender. But tonight we're specifically focusing on spirituality. So I really love the idea that you were talking about running from yourself. And so what did you find initially in moving from a place of not really having religion into seeking religion? Like what do you think you were seeking in the beginning of that journey? And then when you got there, what did you find?
I think for me, I was looking for security. I was looking for a place that I could feel like I could just let my guard down a little bit and be comfortable. And so I think that was a lot of what like church was for me. And I think for me, my relationship with God, my relationship with spirituality was about church. It was more practical. It was a more tangible kind of experience. You know, now that I've lived on the earth a little bit longer, I kind of have a sense of what spirituality is in relation to religion. And I would say that I was in religion. I had a safe place to go to. I had rules and ways of doing things and living my life that was helpful. And it was helpful to be in a group of people who were living in a similar way. That was until you change. And at some point you're different than that space, then you kind of lose everything. Because I had put so much investment in, I made it my whole life. And once I lost, say, church or God, I lost all my friends. I lost all my activities. I lost my vocation. I lost, there were just so many things it was my whole life. So it was a huge loss. And I had to reach for something to pick that up. I had to reach for something else that could help me feel safe, that could give me life, that could propel me, and drugs and alcohol were that was the thing. That was the thing for me that I could reach to, and that caused me to be able to live a life that I couldn't have done on my own. I could just, and it was a lot of going out and dancing and having fun and dressing all provocative and, like coming to realize I was gay at the time and queer and just living into that life. Drugs and alcohol was really helpful for that, in helping me live in my truth.
It was, yes. I think so much of what you're saying is very powerful. First and foremost, that as human beings, what I've learned in my own healing journey, we are always consciously or subconsciously looking for things to ground us and to contain us so that we feel a sense of belonging. And then you put that natural God-given desire to connect and be grounded in your life, in your space, you start putting rules on it. Well, then it just becomes this overwhelming feeling of needing to fit in. And the more outside of that narrative of safe, the more unhinged you begin to feel. I remember growing up, I grew up very religious. I grew up in a very religious Mexican, very, very traditionally values driven home. And I grew up at a very young age believing that all of the things that have made my life so real and so connected and so full of meaning, that they were actually very dangerous, like cost my soul dangerous. And to be a child left alone with those feelings, it eroded me to almost nothing. And that's the reality of it. And I believed it. And then I so desperately wanted these rules to fix me. We talk about pray the gay away. I wanted them to fix me because I believed I was flawed. I believed I was bad. And that's shame.
Yeah.
And so I think for so many of us as queer children who grow up, we don't even necessarily have to grow up in faith-centered homes. The world we live in tells us, hey, you're different or you're wrong. And then nothing in the world speaks to our experience, especially, not in any way that's real. And I think that's also a human thing. We live in an image-driven culture that says you're not enough until you can add or reach or achieve X, Y, and Z. And so, yeah, I really, really, I resonated with finding and needing something to glue me down and to take that pain away so I could live something other than painful.
Right.
And for me, it was substances.
Yeah.
It became a great way to babysit the trauma so I could try to live somewhat of a life, right?
Soften the blow. I always say
Right.
that it softened the blow of life.
If you can relate out there, give us some hearts. We love hearts. We want to know if we're helping. Yeah, it really did soften the blow. So when did it change for you? We talked about spirituality being the things in life, everything's connected. And it's those things in life that lift you up, help you heal, elevate you. It can be people, it can be practices, it can be church. What was that moment like for you when you were like, okay, something's up?
Yeah. I think for me, it was, it was just getting to a place over and over again where everything was kind of the same. There might have been like a new boyfriend or a new husband or a new job or new friends or whatever, but I was often finding myself having the same feelings of not enough, of I'm gonna mess everything up, like all those sorts of things. And one morning I just woke up on Mother's Day, and the night before, yes, I had drank. Yes, I had blacked out. Yes, I had, you know, been unfaithful in my relationship. Yes, I was, but it wasn't the night that I used the most, or that I was the most messiest, or the most like out of control. But for whatever reason that morning, I just realized that I couldn't get different results with my life. And I was trying so hard. And that was the thing. It was like I was trying. I didn't realize that I was the only there were people around me. There was spirituality around me, but I never could access it. And so I was just exhausted, I think. And I just kind of I didn't know what else to do. And, and we often hear people talk about desperation. And I was desperate for something to fix me. And somebody told me that they thought I drank too much. And I was like, oh, that's it. Like, that's why I'm falling short. Like, that's why I do these things that I say I'm not going to do, or that in my heart of hearts or in my morals, it's not part of like how I want to live my life, but I constantly fail. And I was happy to have an excuse. But so I got away from the drugs and alcohol and started to, be away from the drugs and alcohol. And then the truth started to reveal itself. And like before, I think what the drinking and alcohol did was it actually allowed me to do what I wanted, because I didn't have the courage enough to leave a relationship or be in a better position. So I would drink or use so that I could get out of that, so to speak.
Almost like it calmed the fear of being vulnerably alive,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
it did. Yeah, I mean, it somehow allowed me not to confront things. It made me dishonest. Like that was something I was really shocked at because I always thought I was an honest person, and no, like it made it really. And I don't know. And I just got to a space where I didn't know what else to do, and I went into recovery, and I met queer people. I met people like myself who were talking about God, and they were able to say it in ways that like it didn't burn in their throat, and it didn't have like expletives attached to it. It was like they were talking as if they had a God or a higher power in their life that they loved and they had a relationship with, and then they also were living these lives that I didn't know that queer folks could live. And they were claiming that spirituality was helping them with that. And that's when I realized that's what I was missing. Like that's what I was struggling with in my life, is that I had lost the connection with my spirit, the connection with your spirit, the connection with the greater spirit, And I didn't even realize that that's what I had lost until I saw other people have it. And then I was like, that's it. That's what I want. And I fought the God thing for so long because of my damage, my religious damage. It took me a long time to be able to use the word God now. And the God is not the God that I grew up with. It's not the God I went to church with. Um, for a long time, I couldn't even go into a church, and I couldn't even speak of God as anything close to religion. Now my understanding is that it can be all of that, right? God can even be in church. I can even experience God in church. And that was something that took, it took a while for me.
Yes. I want to answer this question, so I'm going to throw it out there, but I do. So we have, do you have any advice on how to start letting yourself explore and develop your spirituality and self-expression after coming from a space or childhood that's been so damaging and isolating? Wow.
Mm.
What a beautifully articulated and honest question that I know I relate to so much. So thank you so much for putting that question out there. So, Bonnie,
Yeah.
ever so kind as to begin addressing such a wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what a great question. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's me, That's where I was at. And I think the big thing is, again, just identifying it, noticing that, like, where seeing it, I think is a big part. And then, trying to connect with folks who are a little bit further along than you in the process, in most faith communities, in most recovery communities. And, there's a lot of spaces where people have been dealing with this stuff longer than we have. And so I think that's one thing that was really helpful and continues to be helpful for me in all parts of my life, is to realize that I'm not alone, that I'm not the only one going through this, and that there is somebody who's dealt with this already and is a little bit further. And I think then I was able to kind of do what they did, listen to what they said, and eventually be able to have my own words and my own experience and begin to find my own spirituality and my own higher power. For a long time, I had to use other people's. I had
Right.
to I had to use yours because it was working for you. So I just hoped that you weren't full of crap and that I could get that same experience too.
I laugh because when I came in, I grew up so afraid. I think when I finally began looking in the mirror, I had this moment where to kind of address this question. And please keep the questions coming. If you
Yes.
are just joining in, we're two wonderfully queer people discussing faith, spirituality, and healing in our mental health. So just stick around. And I just had this moment where I was like, oh my God, it's not the eating disorder. It's not drugs and alcohol. It's that I don't know how to love myself.
Mm.
I was put on this earth to love me and to share me with everybody in an authentic way. And I don't know how to do that. That was never taught to me. That was taken from me. So while I was a victim in many ways, I realized that the only person who could change that was me. And that terrified the crap out of me. That was my gift of desperation, my first God moment. And I loved how I just want to say, first and foremost, that there is nothing wrong with who you are. No human being is wrong. We are all works in progress. The way that I experience religion is it takes a snapshot of someone's journey, someone's incomplete journey, and it says, is this right or wrong? And then decides to throw it in a pile. That is not God. That is not real. That is fear. And so what I realized is I had to go from fearing myself to accepting myself to loving myself. And I couldn't do that alone. So I loved how you talked about finding people who affirm you, who are speaking the language of the heart. They're revealing about themselves, like you did with me, like I do with you. They're revealing about who they are and what they've gone through. They're showing that they are safe people. And whether that's an affirming church or yoga or a counselor that sees and validates gender, sexuality, or a counseling community or some kind of community that says, we identify with you, you matter, you belong. Not that you fit in, you belong.
Yeah.
That's how you begin. And when you're ready, when you are ready, I want to really stress that enough. Like, there's nothing wrong with not being ready. Just know that on the other side of that critic is actually a room full of people who are waiting to fangirl you to death and help you however they can, because that has been the biggest gift of my life, and finding someone like you know, to connect with you. We met for the first time a week ago over coffee in New York City. And I'm just so, and we had so much in common. We knew so many people in common. I mean, that's the beauty of spirituality, is recognizing that for me, we're never done. I don't have to be done.
Yeah.
I think faith is a beautiful thing, and it's shared by religion and it's shared by spirituality. And I think spirituality is a part of religion for people. And I think religion can be a part of spirituality. I don't think they're opposing things at all.
Yeah,
But
I think.
Oh, sorry, go.
No, one of the things I was going to say that was really helpful for me, and it might not be possible for everyone, but I did get in recovery, and I was able to deal with my addictions, but I had very specific trauma from growing up in Christian church. And so I happened to come upon a Christian church that I could go to that reminded me of the one that I grew up in. Um, but it celebrated who I was now. Like, I was able to be the queer person I was, and I was able to help with communion. I was actually even able to co-preach. And, I went to this church, and this was just my experience, but the first time I went, I wasn't supposed to be there. The preacher was telling my story. He was a gay addict, and he was telling my story, and I was just like, why? I'm not even supposed to be here. This message is for me. I'm not supposed to be here. And I just was crying, except for I was supposed to be there, right? And
Right.
I found myself in that church every week for months, and I bawled and I cried, and I couldn't not go. And I was able to heal. I think that was very powerful. And for me, I don't know that everyone gets to have that opportunity. And I don't identify as a Christian today. It wasn't that I took up that cross or I even found that God, but it was helpful for me to, I don't know, something happened. There was some sort of
Retell
healing.
the story.
Exactly.
Retell the story. I know. I don't. I know it's always so tricky because I don't believe any path is wrong. What
Right.
I tell people is I don't care who God is. They just have to love you.
Mm-hmm.
I have two things when it comes to God, because there's a lot of God talk, especially in the substance use world, and there's a lot of spirituality and God interlaced with mental health because our minds and who we are is so sacred and never completely known. But I just say it's not me. I'm not the
Right.
end all be all. I need
Right.
to remain teachable and changeable and adaptable and growing. And then the other thing is, it has to love me no matter what. I never got that story
Mm.
that there was this force in the universe that was love and accepting and allowing and healing. Because all I ever heard growing up was there's a right and there's a wrong. And,
Yep.
that's black and white. And so there's an in and there's an out. And with spirituality, it's like there is no in, there is no out. It just is. Where are you? Where do you fall? Where do
Mm-hmm.
you land? Because there's some days I wake up and I'm like, yes, I'm on the mountaintop. And then there's other days I wake up and it's like, I'm a fraud and I feel like I'm way down here. And it's
Well,
all part of it.
yeah, and I think there's a time that it's helpful to where everything is more black and white, like sometimes I had to make everything more simple. I had to make things black and white, see things black and white so I can make decisions. The longer I live and the more I grow, there are tons of shades of light. And I say shades of light instead of gray, but like I there are tons of shades and I get more from life when I can realize that there are more than just black and white, that there are lots of different, like there's just so much more going on than just like two things or whatever. And so I think that's something I think that's like the spiritual aspect, right? When you start living beyond what you know or start um, like living beyond black and white. And I think at
Right.
some point in time, you hit a point where you just cannot deny that this is not accurate. Like black and white is just not the full story,
The
and it's
way I,
not enough.
yes, absolutely. The way I look at it is when I believed all of those things that I had been taught to believe about myself, I was my sickest and my lowest.
Mm,
And when I began facing those fears from a place of faith, borrowing faith from other people, like, and I could not do it alone. I really, something was looking out for me. I
yeah.
stumbled across a conversation like this. I too came across a church that looked like what I had grown up with, but provided me so much healing. Um, and it just has amazed me over the years that the more and more I grow in accepting that I am lovable, that I
Hmm.
belong, that I matter, that God would never condemn, but would uplift.
Right.
I have found joy, connection, healing, sobriety, recovery, all of those things have come into my life from listening to the voices and the experiences in the world that love not just me, but everyone else, that makes room for all, everything belongs. And so that to me is like spirituality,
Hmm.
is this feeling that everything belongs, that everything, not to quote a Bible, but I'm a Southern girl at heart and I will. When God, created everything, it doesn't say he looked down at the world and said, some of it's good, a lot of it's, caca. It
Hmm.
was, and he looked at what he made and it was good.
Right.
All of it was good. So
Hmm.
for me, spirituality is being able to see the good in me, the good in you, and to allow things to continue to unfold.
Right. And I think the thing that we all can do, no matter where we're at in this spiritual journey, is just to seek it. I think that's all it takes is just the acknowledgement and the seeking of that which is within and outside of me. Like, I think that's all it is. That's all spirituality is. And as long as I continue to do that, I will continue to experience spirituality. Eventually God fails me. My higher power fails me. And it's not true. It's my understanding of my higher power, my understanding of the world, the way that I believed has to change because
Right.
my experience is different than what I had believed. And that's the thing that I have to continue to do is come to understand what I know and what I come to know and what I believe and what God is, what I am, what my role is. Like I have to constantly reach for a bigger, more expansive understanding. Like there just has to be more than
You
just
know,
what I can do.
I'm laughing so inside right now from a place of joy because I was telling someone in recovery, it's like one day I woke up and everything I thought I believed just stopped working because
Mm,
that voice of self-doubt and fear just surfaced again. It was like it was waiting for me at the edge of my bed.
yeah.
And I say that because even though I am 7 years sober and I have not acted out an eating disorder or self-harming behaviors in over 10 years, that dis-ease is still there. It
Mm-hmm.
still comes up. It says, you're not who you think you are. You're a fraud. I just want to say that that is part of being human. I used to think, oh my God, because I'm experiencing this, I must not be in recovery. I must be doing something wrong. No,
Mm-hmm.
it means it means I'm right where I belong. And
Right.
it's time to grow a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I love how you said it's like my understanding needs to change. And I think that is so beautiful
Yeah.
because we're part of my recovery has been letting go and grieving so many things,
Mm-hmm.
grieving who I thought I needed to be because I thought it was going to keep me safe. And then realizing that, like, even though I thought it was going to keep me safe, I didn't really have anything else yet to fully hold on to. And so there was this very vulnerable grieving process. And I think that is real too. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
get to grieve your former understanding in order to unfold this new understanding in front of you
Yeah.
of loving yourself. Like, to me, recovery, mental healing, you can't have love without acceptance. You can't have love without allowing. You can't have healing without love. Like, they're so interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, spirituality is just a word that really is about all of those things. It can be
Yeah.
yoga, meditation, prayer, community, gymnastics. It can be writing that song that you told yourself you'd never be good enough to write. It could be, putting yourself out there and getting an education because, you spent 7 years of your life healing yourself. And now it's time for you to
Mm-hmm.
take those steps, and your life wants you to
Yeah.
live it. And that is
Yeah.
spirituality.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a big part of the recovery process is that I was desperate and I needed that desperation in order to begin my healing process. In that desperation, I was able to begin healing. But once I got healed, and I think that's one thing to be mindful of, I think after a certain amount of time, we do heal. And a lot of systems, a lot of institutions are set up as if we're not healed, as if we're still in crutches. I think churches, there are a lot of places that just don't take us beyond, and it almost kind of comes at us as if we're still in that crutch, if we're still in that state of desperation. And for me, I'm living beyond that desperation. Like I have a moment like where I have a desire for God in my life. I know now that I can actually live beyond what I ever thought I could do for myself as a person like me. For a while in my recovery, I was just settling just to be okay and to be healed and to just kind of be up to the level that I was. And like higher power, God, spirituality, it wants more for us. And so I get to live beyond. I get to create along with my creator myself beyond what has happened to me, beyond my trauma, beyond my addiction, beyond the issues with my body. I get to live beyond that the more I continue to I think I have a desire for God because it just makes sense.
Right.
Like it's a no-brainer, but there's not that desperation anymore. And I hope that for everyone at some point in time, but to also for me to recognize that the desperation was important. And I hope that if I ever need it again, that I'll have it.
Right. Every journey begins with the first step, and that first step is just
Mm,
as important as the second, the 100th, the millionth. They're all necessary. And it's only
yeah.
looking back can I see that I needed those first days of sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
There was no other way. I needed those. I needed every experience in my eating disorder, in
Yeah.
my addiction.
Well,
So
Yeah, and I think it's really important for us to, once we do begin to see the world differently, and we begin to believe things differently, and we have a higher power, or we have a God consciousness. And I think it's really helpful for us to look in our past, look at it, look at ourselves when we were younger and we were going through life, and we didn't see those things that we believe now. That's what changes our narrative. When we can go back and see that these things that are at play in my life right now, that I know that are tangible, that are here, was also there with me the night that I got raped, that was with me the nights after I got raped. Like, and I know that's a really hard thing to come to, like, to think about right now, but it was really important for me to take my understanding of my now and see it in my past, so that I can begin to live past my experience. I think that reminds me of my resilience, and it also builds my faith, so that when I'm in a position in which I can't see God, I can't feel God, I can't believe anything anymore, I can know I've been there before, and God was there, or my understanding was there. And
Right.
so it helps me, it gives me hope, and it helps me be okay when I'm not okay.
To kind of, I want to be mindful of time, and I
Yes, I
really,
am.
no, I could, we can go on forever, and I'm sure it's not a problem, but um, I just, I love what you just said. I think that's such a perfect way to end, is to realize that it's never over. Even the beginning,
Mhm.
the origin is not over. It. Our understanding of it will continue to change as we heal. Like when I look back at my life when I was a child and I was left alone with those feelings of being wrong and incorrect, I need my now to look back and say, you weren't a bad kid. You weren't a bad person. You weren't unlovable. You just were not in a place where you felt safe. And so I developed the things that I developed, the eating disorder, the addiction, as a way to save my own life with the best thing that I had. And it's only because of my now that I can look back at those moments in my life and heal the past, which then transforms the present and rewrites a new future. It's eternal. It's so beautiful. And it's because of my recovery community and my faith and people like you that I'm able to look at my life and go, none of it is done, and all of it can be rewritten.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to Queen and Sober. This is just as much your space. You can find me at FK Drag on Instagram. Please message me any topics or questions that you want tackled in any future episodes. Um, I'm going to tag Bonnie again, so you can get in contact with Bonnie. I know that she would love to hear from all of you as well. Please follow Bonnie at Bonnie Violet on Instagram. Or is it a queer chaplain?
It's a queer chaplain. It's
A queer
okay.
chaplain. Okay. I love how Instagram, like a queer chaplain, which I will also tag. And I will also tag all of the amazing work that they are continuously doing on social media through various branches of social media and various pages. So this conversation does not have to end here, nor has it begun here. Bonnie has been
Right.
doing work for a very long time, and it is so
Mhm.
profound. So I want to thank you so much, Bonnie, one more time for giving us your heart, your soul, your spirit.
Oh,
Um, you're my,
thank you.
I love
Thank
you.
you for everything, and thanks everyone for being here tonight.
All right. Well, have a gay day tomorrow.
All right.
Celebrate all of you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.